Hello there.
Hello.
How are you?
Hi. How are you?
Fine, thank you. I appreciate you joining me today. Now, let me do this.
All right.
And Patrick, would you? It seems like a lot of people already know who you are.
Yeah.
Would you introduce yourself, please?
Okay, so my name is Patrick Roddy. From Northern Ireland, Belfast. I was born and raised. I have a physics background. I was a newspaper reporter, journalist, photographer, all kinds of stuff. I've been researching geoengineering slash chemtrails because they're chemical trails. Let's not no bones about it. And I collect evidence. I use my science background. I do rainwater analysis. In fact, like this is the next one that's going to get sent off to McCampbell Analytical. I'm testing for aluminum, barium, titanium, and iron. Iron and aluminum we should get into and why those are not good to have in your body.
Right.
They really mess up your brain. Um,
So
so
this
so
is very interesting, Patrick, and thank you. And so as you know, I mean, we just met.
Last night. No,
Yeah,
it was
last
a mutual friend said, "Oh,
week. It
hey,
was
look at this guy." He's like,
just
"Oh, yay, you're talking about it." Awesome.
you were referred to me, and so I sent out an email, and we spoke just very little this morning.
Right.
And so, as you know, I'm running for state senate here
Right.
in California, and it was stunning to me the pushback that I got when I spoke about chemtrails. It was extraordinary. I mean, the messages that I was getting, the threats that I was getting through private messages, and um, and so I found that intriguing. And so, why do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, this program is going on. Only the willfully ignorant are denying it. Um, But you got to think of how expensive this was. If we were to do this, we'd have to buy a plane first. An unmodified 747 is $400-500 million per plane. That's before you put dudes and all the others, the running costs and maintenance and all that stuff. So it's a really huge program. And when you look at NASA Worldview, it's Worldview. No, worldview.earthdata.nasa.gov. You can see the entire globe, and most of it is trashed by what they call geoengineering. So
Right.
massive resources. I mean, the scumbags. By the way, the scumbags are the people I call the people who decide to do all these crappy things. GMOs and chemtrails and whatnot. And the douchebags are the ones who work for them. They can afford to hire all kinds of douchebags. They have unlimited money. They print it. I'm not saying it's the bankers, or I'm not saying it's any particular group. This is purely a spiritual battle. You and I
Right.
we are led and guided by and serve goodness, puppies and ice cream. The other side do the reverse. So,
Right.
so
If I could just
there are people who have ethically challenged, and for their 30 pieces of silver, they'll come out in force and dogpile you if you try and raise awareness. We're exposing the truth; they're suppressing the truth.
Okay, so I'll just add this. And by the way, he Patrick has interesting terms for certain people. We may not necessarily share the usage of uh, but
It's shorthand for me.
no, and I'm fine. I got it.
Yeah.
So in other words, there really is, and I know this to be true, but I just want to emphasize this because I think there are some people who may not be so aware of it's too difficult to believe. It's just too difficult that our own government would be spraying these toxins into the air. And then, even more difficult to believe, also, is that this is a worldwide uh, assault, and that it's so coordinated and so secretive. And so, this isn't really, there's no question. I mean, we have verifiable, just like what you showed, we have verifiable evidence that toxins that are harmful to our health are being sprayed into our atmosphere.
Absolutely, there's scientific proof they've found aluminum in the sky. I mean, planes that fly around. They talk about ppm. The particulate pollution that we are breathing in of different sizes contains aluminum. EPA, interestingly enough, decided to stop publishing results of airborne aluminum back in 2002, and I'll be filing a Freedom of Information request to get all metallic content of the stuff. There's lots of ways. I applaud the fact that you are going through the political process, because even though it is mostly rotten, I mean, like lawyers are, looked down upon for being less than, mendacity sort of runs through that. We should not just give up the field of politics, nor should we give up on science because there's control of what publications you can get into, and you don't need to be ordained into the priest class with a doctorate or you got a PhD and all that kind of stuff to be able to look up stuff yourself and figure it out. And I'm actually grateful for the shills because they criticize my methods, and if I have any problems in my methods, I'll go, oh, hey, that's a good point, thank you, yay. So
Right.
I have no qualifications. I'm just some guy. And the point
Well,
is, everyone can
ask
do
you.
this. Everyone.
Yes, let me ask you this, and I appreciate that. You're right. We all who have reasonable minds that we can study, self-study, and do our own due diligence.
Right.
So I'm going to ask you questions that many people may not know,
Mm-hmm.
and just so we can clarify. So there's no question that there's aluminums in the air, and
Yes.
what you're basically saying here is that aluminums aren't supposed to be in the air.
Well, up until the aluminum age, because aluminum used to be this extremely rare, hard to get metal. It was more valuable than gold. Because it was so tightly bound into the ore. It's aluminosilicate. So silicon and aluminum together makes iron, or sorry, aluminum ore, and it's completely unavailable to the biosphere. So we have so when it became refined, it became either free aluminum metal or the different metal salts, which include aluminum oxide, alumina. And alumina is what has been proposed by David Keitham and others to spray in the atmosphere. And for people who haven't heard of this geoengineering proposal, here's the thumbnail, the official line. We're all going to die from global warming, so as a last resort, we might have to put particles into the sky to reflect sunlight back into space to reduce global warming.
Right.
And mostly they've been talking about sulfate, sulfuric acid and whatnot. But they themselves say in their own literature that it doesn't work. It sticks together, it falls out of the sky as acid rain, which also isn't good. So instead you have to use aluminum, barium, strontium, and all these other metals. And David Keith himself said at the AIS conference, I think it was in 2010, that it was the great thing about aluminum is that was much more effective per unit mass. It doesn't fall out of the sky, and that's what we're finding. And it's in our rainwater, it's in our brains,
Right.
it's in groundwater,
So
it's in trees, it's everywhere.
right, and the whole idea, I mean, even for somebody with basic, just using common sense, it sounds crazy that we have scientists who are trying to tell us that by putting a bunch of particles, into the sky that's literally poisonous to our systems, that they're going to be able to reflect the heat back up into the air and avoid global warming. I mean, that to me sounds so unreasonable and asinine for even an explanation. And so I ask you this: is there a chance that they're even trying to change the narrative just a little bit?
Of
For
course,
example,
of course.
idea of putting particles in the air to reflect heat seems so stupid And now they're talking about that they're seeding the clouds, and then that connotes that there's something reasonable and scientific to help humanity by controlling the weather. And I think, isn't that also just another ruse to be able to justify putting these toxins into our atmosphere?
Yeah, yes and no. There is cloud seeding. If you're a ski resort and you need snow, you can hire a company that will either have ground-based generators which emit silver iodide, or you can fly a plane over it that have silver iodide flares. It's a weather modification industry, and they even have a trade association of which I'm a member. I'm a member of the Weather Modification Association. I've been to 2 of their meetings, and I've interviewed them. And of course, they deny that it's going on. Of course, they're aware. They're more aware than anyone else because they actually work in the sky and they know how this stuff works. They spray silver iodide to make it rain for fog suppression and reducing hail size. That is, it's questionable. I don't think you should be tinkering with any of this, but that is a legitimate business, like the mob would have, like, oh yeah, we've got a laundromat. But what's going on in the skies, the cover story, oh, it's to save us from global warming, is bunk. And here's why. They are creating artificial cirrus cloud cover. It's warmer at night when it's cloudy. It's an insulator. It has no net effect on global warming, and they know it. High school, like children, know it's warmer at night when it's cloudy, and during the day when the clouds are gone, it's warmer. It's that's not difficult to know. And secondly, if it was for their purported purpose for reflecting sunlight back into space to reduce global warming, they would find the most reflective, effective particle and only spray that. But anyone who's been paying attention, there's all kinds of crap that's up there. I mean, the trails behave differently. Some are wispy, some rapidly expand, others drip. They're different colors. And on days when there's a heavy barium load, there's a freaking halo around the sun, which I call an incredibly rare sundog, because that was the first thing the shields would call it. And that was actually another piece of science that I do. If I pan over there, there's my window. And just outside my window here, I have this little camera that takes a picture every 5 seconds, and I do time lapses. So if you go to my Facebook or my YouTube, you'll see most days I'll post these time lapses, and most days you have this incredibly rare sundog. And when there's been a bunch of these incredibly rare sundogs, the next time it rains, I always get a very high level of barium. Barium, that's nasty. Less than 1 gram of barium will kill an adult human. And they're spraying megatons of this stuff. It's, the evidence is there. It's not right now. The debate is over. I mean, there are people who'll still say, oh, you're afraid of clouds. That's like, ignore them. We don't need any more evidence. What we need is awareness and people banging the drum and saying, hey, stop spraying us, hence the sign. Right. And the badge. Oh, yeah, I got cool badges and stuff. You can get at my website. That's another story. But, yeah.
I think that the people in many aspects have been, as you, raising awareness, and different, I've met different activists and very appreciative of what's been happening. But from my perspective, what I have seen is that and you're in the state of California, you're in San Francisco, that this state government doesn't care what the people want or what we think.
All state governments, all national governments, all state agencies, all officials, all meteorologists, all physicists, all pilots are aware this is going on. If you know high school physics, you know it's going on. High school physics, like some mornings you come out and there's dew, like the tips of the grass have little droplets on them. That's because the relative humidity hit 100% and the point of the blade of grass acted as a condensation nuclei and water formed. Water does not go from gas, which is the clear gas we're surrounded by. You can't see it. It's a clear gas. It doesn't go from gas to liquid unless it's 100% humidity and it has a condensation nucleus. And you can see what the relative humidity is quite easily. There's a website. If you go on Google and you look up the Wyoming soundings, you can check weather stations all around the world, and they twice a day they send up a weather balloon and measure the relative humidity at different altitudes. Sometimes the skies are gridded out, and the relative humidity is 7%. 7? It's too freaking dry. Here's a science experiment anyone can do. Get a spray bottle and spray your desk. Come back an hour later, it's not there anymore because it's not 100% humidity. Unless it's 100% humidity, it will not condense or go to ice. There's also vapor pressure as well, which is another thing. Simple physics. Anyone can see this, and you can get these. You can see for yourself. Well, obviously, the skies are completely borked. The trails are doing all kinds of things, but we have. One of the side effects of this panopticon spy state is we have this great technology, like, hello, we can talk to each other and all this good stuff. But I have this camera. It's called a Canon. No, sorry, it's a Nikon P900, and it has this crazy zoom. By the way, this is for stopping, wind noise. It has a 24 to 2000 millimeter optical zoom and 5-axis stabilization. I can get close-ups on the planes. And I've gotten close-ups on the planes when they're spraying out of one side and not the other. And of course, even without having a super high zoom, you can see these trails turning on and off. And the shields will say, oh, it's just went through a warm pocket. But they're still... But the fact that it's not 100% humidity, the further up you go, it's pretty freaking dry. Also, there's so much evidence. But do not get dragged down into the shill thing, because they just want to annoy you and get you into their sort of dark energy and angry and all that kind of stuff.
That was my question there also, but I do want to go to the shills because I kind of find that fascinating that there's many who are willing to defend their own poisoning, because I always find it sort of ironic also when I look over the Capitol here in Sacramento and I see chemtrails all over the top of and I'm thinking, wow, I mean, they don't even take care of their own.
Yeah.
But
well, they're not told the full harm that's really happening. So it's need to know. It's the same thing in the military. And actually, in any corporation, you don't know what they're doing at the level above you. You'll get instructions from them, but it's only when you go up a level that you find out why that decision was made. So I actually want to reach out to the shills. And I'm not. My goal is no one will be harmed. That's my ultimate goal. Nobody at all, zero. And I want them to be safe. I want their loved ones to be safe, and they themselves know that they're not getting the whole truth. Like everyone in any corporation, any pyramidal structure of power knows they're not getting that. So if I can protect them, and I want them to be safe, and I want them to keep doing their job as long as they know to ultimately do the right thing. I mean, it can be risky for them to come out and say, actually, yeah, we are getting sprayed, because this is a covert program. This is more covert than the Manhattan Project, and it's in plain sight. You can keep big secrets. That's another one of the logical fallacies.
Well, what I have found is that there's different levels, because some of the shills, I mean, I think they're even agents, but it seems to me that their knowledge base is very high, and
they're trained.
And they're able to articulate and create some arguments, or using, as we talked about earlier, the logical fallacies.
Mm-hmm.
It's they're able to keep people off the truth or the evidence, and they keep moving to different direction. But I wanted to go back and just share, and then go back to the shills on one other thing. But I've spoken to many representatives now, especially now as I'm running here, and I brought this topic up on a number of controversial stuff. But I had one senator telling me that I would be endorsed, and there was a certain amount of funds that needed to come in, and then I would be introduced to the caucus, and then he said, just stick with the economy and stick with jobs.
Right.
And I said, well, what about controversial topics? And he said, well, like what? And so the term that I used was chemtrail. I said, what about chemtrails? And he said, I don't know what that is, so it's not important. I spoke to another assembly person about the same thing who's running for governor, and basically said, I don't know what that is. I spoke to another assembly person the other day, and they told me, don't talk about it. And what's mind-boggling to me is that we are literally being poisoned. I mean, when you look at the definition of what poisoning is, the people are being poisoned. How can representatives come to that place where we feel that it's right to keep this in the dark, while the very people who are trusting us, regardless if it's palatable or not, even if we get pushback from the very people who are trying to save, but if we choose to work as representatives, then it is our responsibility to tell the truth.
It's our duty as guardians of. It's a blessing to be incarnate on the planet right now, and we have all of our ancestors who built what we have now. We should do it for them and our descendants. I mean, we are the current guardians of not the galaxy, but this planet. And it is our duty to do everything we can, and with love. With love, we don't use anything from the other side, hate, fear, violence, whatever. We don't do that. But we can. We are immensely powerful. We are immensely powerful, and we should use it.
And I know on that topic, I know that we differ. And see, that's the thing, is that you and I mean, you're in San Francisco,
right?
I'm over here in, and so and I say that easily, but we have different.
It's like DC. You're in DC East or West,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was teasing. Yeah, So, but my position is that, and I know that we differ here because we kind of touched on that just a little bit.
Yeah.
But if somebody is assaulting we the people, and they're literally, as I said, I've held a child in my arms with autism, and prayed over the child, and it was very, very painful. And just to imagine, I know parents who have children who have suffered, and they have seizures and going through these terrible things. And I know from so far that beating the drum, that having vigils, that shouting at the Capitol, that so far it's not been working. And so, when I get in, I'm going to write a bill. It's just as an example, going in with forced vaccinations, SB 277, which is really illegal and treason against the people, but writing a bill so that we can repeal this illegal law, make sure that the representatives understand that it is their duty to represent the will of the people. And if they don't, that the people will see it as treason, and that we as a people have a right to defend ourselves from the assault of a government that has gone rogue.
Mm-hmm. I hear that and I understand that, but I've become an absolutist, and I find that everything has an opposite. We are being when darkness comes over here, it comes with hate, fear, violence, mendacity, and chaos. What overcomes hate, fear, violence, darkness, and all that sort of stuff is the opposite. What we're good at. We are actually kind of sucky at like vengeance, like being a good liar. If I try to tell you, I'm a space alien from the planet Zog, and this is a fake beard or whatever, I wouldn't be very good at it. So it can be. I truly, when I say believe, no, you light conquers dark. Well, I mean, it doesn't conquer it completely. You don't eliminate darkness. Um, you restore the balance, and when there's more darkness, people like us show up.
Right.
And if adding to violence, then you end up with more violence. I know it's difficult, but I would I don't even think I'd even want to use it as a last resort. But
No,
that's just me.
Appreciate
But there
it.
are all kinds of people in the world. We need
Right.
every single one. I need the
Right.
McWests
Well,
to make me a better person.
right. As the people vote, I've been very transparent. I've made my platform a platform of transparency, and kind of sounds strange that anyone would say that because it's supposed to be that way. I know,
In
and
theory.
and every, I believe that the people will know who they're voting in, and truly, I respect your position on that. We already knew the differences we had, and so I'm grateful
Yeah.
that you came. But my position is that there does come a time of using force if the powers that be continue the increase of the assault. Because what I see this as a crisis, a time of great crisis, because it's very difficult, as you and I were talking about too for a moment, that to wake up into a situation where all of a sudden it's like, we're being what? This is no way. This is impossible. Our government would not do this. It's like even in our area. You know what happens in our area with very little, if any, warning, is they'll spray for so-called Nile mosquitoes, and they're spraying toxins on us without. I mean, how dare they? You
Yeah.
know what? How dare they? I'd love to be. Well, I do. But in that situation, I would be very appreciative to be able to confront that pilot face to face when they come down, and if that pilot thinks that they have some kind of right to go and spray poisons, on people. This is my children we're talking about. This is other people's children, and so. But anyway, I know I'm going off a little bit.
Well,
So
actually,
going back.
not so much. I think that it's a very important point because the good evil thing is eternal. We've always had, as I call them, the scumbags, the people who are drawn towards the darkness and we're towards the light. This has always been going on. It always will be going on. And occasionally you'll have, it's like the sea. Sometimes it's stormy, sometimes it's calm. Right now, it's a bit stormy, and we know, like with every other storm, there's calm afterwards. We know that's coming, so we don't have to worry about, and they think, but they have, drones and computers and all these sort of things. It's the end, panic, no. Every time the other side got a new technological advantage, they did not get complete control because this is a fully spiritual battle, and darkness cannot overcome light, and light cannot completely overcome darkness. It does not work. I know until you actually get to that point of faith, you will not know that, but I can tell you that from my knowledge, that is true. So it's to be expected that they're going to do. I mean, basically, they want death and destruction. Like complete death and destruction, and they always have, they always will, and this is just the stuff that they're doing right now. So, but we
Have you
oh, sorry.
have you researched what actually? And pardon me for that. Have you ever researched, Patrick, what barium actually does to our system, to our bodies?
It's actually quite all you do. If you go to stopsprayingus.com/paper, I wrote a paper called The Human Health Impacts of Proposed Geoengineering Solutions, which I brought to the Paris Climate Conference. I testified at the EPA. I gave a presentation in Istanbul Security Conference in 2015. Yeah, it's in there. But it's actually really simple. If you just go onto Medline or any of the public...
But it's well aspect, and we'll put your emails on there also, your website.
Just Stop Spraying Us, you'll find me.
But does it attack our nervous system? I mean, what does barium do?
It's off the top of my head, it interferes with the biochemical functioning in like, for example, in muscle cells. Your muscles go into spasm, your heart stops, and you die. So that's not good. And but
Yeah, yeah,
that's acute toxicity. But if anything, if something is toxic at acute level, it's also toxic accumulatively in a chronic way. For example,
yeah.
I mean, most of these things are slow kill because
Right,
uh,
right.
aluminum causes cancer. Fact. It also causes Alzheimer's. Fact. If you get a high enough aluminum load in your neurons, your brain cells die and do not get replaced, and you know dementia. And Alzheimer's, the rise in Alzheimer's matches the rise in the spraying. And I'll be publishing that too as well. I mean, back in 1979, nationally there were less than 900 deaths in the entire country from Alzheimer's,
Right.
and the most recent numbers is over 116,000. That's a 35-fold increase. So yeah,
Yeah.
aluminum's not good. Autism is linked to aluminum, and there's all
Right.
kinds of bad stuff. These are, I mean, nobody denies aluminum is a highly potent neurotoxin, except Mick West and his buddies. He said, "Oh, it's fine." Yeah, no,
Right.
it's not.
Right.
No, it's not.
I spoke to someone in Scotland, and in fact, I think he's here now, Colin, and he was saying, and he was showing pictures, but a few things that he said were quite riveting. But one, and I want to just finish this thought really quickly. But one was in one in a given moment he was able to smell when they were spraying. There was a familiar smell from the year before, and he shared with his fiance, "This is what we smelled last year, and we got the flu." He said, "Watch and see if we don't end up getting the flu." And they did. They got something. And he was telling me that they no longer have seasons in Scotland. That the seasons to have spring, that's disappearing, and now they're just getting used to dark sky. What a horrible situation.
It's I liken it to Dresden. You know, the firebombing of Dresden. Um, the Germans knew, yeah, there are fire bombs and all these buildings on fire and stuff. You know, there was this massive. That was a horrific war crime. That, you know, Dresden was not a military place. There were refugees, women, children, elderly, and they just
Wow.
burned them alive. Um,
Wow.
Now, here, it's as big a program, and a lot of people don't know yet, and that's where we come in. Let them know this is going on, and it's going to be hard because, you know, the red pill is a hard thing to swallow because it's a traumatic process. You have to go through the
Right.
grieving process when you realize. In my case, Building 7, the third trade tower that came down on 9/11, which wasn't hit by a plane, had a few office fires. It just came down into
Right.
its footprint at free fall speed. Look into that. And you know, and when you start to realize what the world that you were told was reality isn't, and that there are people with bad intent, and that's another hard one because most of us have a conscience and we have empathy. If I see someone stub their toes, I wince like, oh, right. But there are people
Right.
who empathy is part on the love side with the puppies and ice cream. On the other side, they lack that, and
Yeah.
and it's inconceivable to imagine what it would be to not have empathy. Like, how is that even a thing? But it is.
Right.
And the
Right.
people who actually, the douchebags, have to be sociopathic. When you get someone who's
Right.
not fully sociopathic to do horrible things, they end up with
Right.
PTSD. If you look at, you know, all the suicides from the veterans, when they've done these awful things because they've been conditioned, oh, you got,
Right.
like, when you see this thing, like, pull the trigger. It,
Right.
it it's
And,
it's horrible. But the people,
and by the way,
yeah,
there was a Michael who showed up here from Scotland and corroborated with what Colin was sharing with us, that their seasons are gone.
yeah,
And if we Californians who love our seasons, who love our weather here, and in the United States, recognizing that that is about to take place, then we need to all come to that awakening and come to that place to take action. But
Hmm.
I would like to speak with you again because, Patrick, this is such an important topic. But I just wanted to say just thank you. I mean,
Hmm.
you're a wealth of knowledge, and do you want to share your websites or any
Yeah, the
information
best.
that you have?
Yeah, how you find me? My name is Patrick Roddy, Roddie. Just if you look up that, you'll find all my stuff. I'm on Facebook and YouTube and whatnot. My website is stopsprayingus.com, stopsprayingus.com, and you can buy these cool buttons to support my work because these water tests aren't free. But it's I think an approach that we should be taking, because right now this is covert, nobody's going to admit it, but the proposals are not covert, and if we can get as many people as possible to roundly condemn the possibility of doing this in the future, I think that would be a very valuable thing to do, even though of course it's going on. I think that we need to use what we have, the political process. Just talk to someone on the bus, anything, and once you start speaking truth, things just get better. And
Okay.
thank you.
Well, Patrick, appreciate it very much, and then I hope that you and I will have the opportunity to meet in person.
Hope so too. Yeah.
I think San Francisco is a beautiful city, and so we like to hang out there every now and then.
Nice.
So again, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
Thank you. Awesome. Yay.
All right.
All right.
We'll be in touch.
Oh, very soon. All right. Bye.
So that was Patrick, and I appreciate him coming on. I'm going to be speaking to Dane Wigington a little bit later today, and I think a lot of you know who he is, and so we and yes, and and all of us, and that's what's so wonderful is that even here, Patrick and I are we have a lot of differences, but we're also we're friends, and we both have the same desires, and those same desires is that we have an earth here that's taken care of, and that our children are going to have a future. But I say but because my position is that if we do not have the results as the people, as we come together, then I do believe that there comes a time to use force. And when I say force, and I'm speaking of just that force. At some point, we can ask. But if I'll give you an example here, and it's not a nice example, but I wonder, with some of the children who have been abused by adults who prey on children behind closed doors, when those children appealed in those situations, nothing was changed. And so the point is the adult being there, as long as that adult had nothing opposing, and the point is that I just see this government has no regard for the people, has no fear of the people, and so I think that shouting at the building that time is coming to an end. And yes, I wasn't really saying shoot the planes out of the sky. We find where these planes are taken off from, and we confront it. And we're being told that there's no poison by the shills that show up. Let we, the people, figure it out for ourselves by stopping these planes. I mean, we don't have to figure out, we know it, but let's prove it. And stop these planes from taking off, and go in and with the task force and make the inspections, and stop this assault on the people. And so that's just the way life is. There comes a time to fight, and the time to fight is 2018. And we'll try to use the legislative process when I get in, but if, and we'll make sure that each representative understands, here's the situation, is this bill that's going to be voted on is extremely important to the people, and we're called to represent the interest of the people. If you choose to vote for special interest and against the people, there will be consequences. In other words, if the assault is voted in, that basically the representatives say, yes, you can breach the Constitution of the people, you can force vaccinate, for example, force vaccinate with these poisons against the will of the people, then the people will rise up and the people will fight, and we will hold rogue representatives accountable. And I've treason, and it's been that way from the very beginning of our great country. Treason is punishable by death, and so we'll see how things go forward. But let's unite, and knowing we need clean water, we demand it. We want clean air. We want our skies. We want our seasons, and we want true representation. We want our soil. We don't want Monsanto anymore. We don't want Monsanto in this state anymore. And we're taking back this state. 2018, we, the people, are going to have victories. I have no question about that. And let me finish by saying this so that there's never, ever a question on this. And I don't think that there is. But these mountains that we're coming against they're too big, for us to do it by ourselves. This is a force that is coming against the people, and it will be by prayer, and it will be by the favor of God moving on our behalf as we do our part in the name of Jesus, that we will get this state back. And I believe that we're going to witness that.